Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts A9. We need to talk about the whole Superman financial situation. Um, yeah, there's two sort of ideas with the Superman budget, and profitability and box office expectations and everything. The first is the traditional Hollywood thinking, which is you need to make twice as much as your budget, at least, to make any money, because the box office, the studio only gets half of that in America and less than that internationally, so 30 or 40%. So you need to make double plus about 20% in order to actually make any money, to get your money back, and then after that you start making money. Now, the other thought, which comes from people like John Campion, who, look, I normally watch his show because he's not a chud and he's positive and not just doing, the fandom menace, hate sort of routine. But he doesn't really have a clue about a lot of stuff, and it's kind of funny. But his idea is the film doesn't have to make any money. It just has to do really good and create goodwill. So the rest of the films in the era make money, and the studios are just sitting there saying, this film is like being sacrificed to like set up the era and to establish goodwill when people realize it's not the old DC that people aren't going to come and see, and that this sort of sacrificial lamb to get everything rolling, and it doesn't need to make money. I'm like, I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe the executives are sitting there thinking that. Maybe someone said it in a meeting somewhere, but they're expecting to get their money back. They're expecting to make money out of this, and if they don't, they're going to cancel it pretty quick. They're going to be like, we're not giving you hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars if we're not going to get money back. We're not here for a public service, to make comic book movies, for the public that don't make any money. And they'll be cancelling everything, getting rid of James Gunn and rebooting pretty quick because they don't care. They don't care about the fans and the damage doing another reboot so soon could do and what it says, all that. They just think about money, and it's not making money, it's gone. So I can't believe this idea that they're just going to sort of sacrifice this film for the cause and look at the big picture. They should. That's what Marvel did. But that's not how executives work. They're just looking at the bottom line while they're there, because they may not even be there when this big picture unfolds, and they're just caring about if their films make money now and it looks good to the investors and the studio and everyone. So that's sort of the situation there. But so far as the budget, oh my God, James Gunn, who I believe is a liar, and some people suggesting that some of the jokes he made may reflect actual things that he's done, but we're not going to speculate about any of that. But he is saying the budget is 225 million, and he's not mentioning the advertising. Now, other sources are saying that the advertising, they may go as high as 200 million from the usual 150 million. So even that would make it 325 million, which means they'd have to make at least 850 million to actually make a profit, roughly. But allegedly, the budget is a lot higher. Apparently, there's some tax forms that were lodged because they were getting tax from one of the places they filmed in. They were getting like a cut or something, or whatever they do, a deal. And they're having like $10 million taken off the budget. That was like what they got back. And it revealed that the budget at that time was 363 million, and the 10 million off the tax break, whatever it was, took them down to 353 million. So add the 200 advertising, that's 553 million. So over 550 million budget. There's no way they're going to make enough money. In order to actually make a profit out of that film, they'd have to make $1.2 billion to actually, cover the cost, and then at that point start making money, roughly, depending on how much they get from the international, because that's all negotiated between different countries and different areas and chains and everything, and it's a lot harder to sort of government seems to change with every film that's negotiated, as opposed to the Hollywood American side of things is pretty much consistent. But so the idea that they're going to spend that much money on a film that has to make 1.2 billion at least just to break even is mind-boggling. And I'm sure they think they're going to get their money back. Now, the opening looks like it's going to be big. The projections look good, but the projections for Man of Steel were big as well, and they only got to 700. And that didn't have any of the baggage this film has. And also, inflation probably made more than that. But yeah, it's not looking good. I don't see how they can actually do this, and the idea that they can just not make money, and as long as people like the film and come back for the Supergirl film, then somehow they're going to make the money back for the other films. And looking at the big picture, I don't think anyone's looking at the big picture with this. And yeah, it just looks like a disaster. And I can't remember what else I had to mention. There's something else I'm forgetting. But yeah, the budget looks... Oh, an example of Mission Impossible. They spent $400 million on that film. They're never going to make that money back because they haven't had a Mission Impossible film make over $800 million, I don't think. So how they spent $400 million on it? I'm guessing the executives were grifted on the success of Top Gun, Maverick, and the idea that was all about Tom Cruise and that was about the film. It was about MAGA. MAGA got behind that film to show if we get behind a film, we can make a hit. And it had nothing to do with Tom Cruise. It had nothing to do with Top Gun. It just happened to be Top Gun that they picked because they thought it was a patriotic film. And I'm guessing that they spent the money on Mission Impossible expecting Mission Impossible to do Maverick money. But it was never going to, and I don't think it will. It's doing okay, but yeah, so they really need to look at these budgets. They're ridiculous. They don't need to be this big. And the idea that you make a film so expensive it has to be a blockbuster just to break even and make money. And the arrogance that, yes, we can spend enough money to, pay basically for the advertising to basically have the general public, watch this film. Like, they can't think for themselves and they just follow marketing that we can pay for, buy and everything. It's gotten out of hand. They need to pull back, make smaller films that are less risk, that they can take more risks with, instead of just doing this formulaic giant blockbusters that are so bloated and come with such